This is not the alumni weekend we had planned for you. We were planning to bring you back on a glorious October weekend for conversation and celebration. And we're still going to do that just a year later. For now, though, we want to just give you a small memento, a remembrance of your time here, and a reminder that you are in our hearts, even if we can't be together this October. One of the reasons we're doing this video is to give everybody a chance to tell the history of the school. And I really feel the fact that I follow on the heels of these remarkable people. I mean, their names are carved in my window. If you look over my shoulder, you'll see that Guido Calabrese's name is not just carved in the window, but the shadow of it crosses my desk over the course of the day.
First and foremost, I'm just delighted to be talking to all of you guys and gals. I'm sorry that you're not here, but maybe next time we'll be able to be together. In any case, this is the best that can be done, and it's a joy because I know that it's also reaching some people who would not have been able to come to New Haven, and that's a great advantage of this, that we can reach out further, which is, of course, what the law school is about.
Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a spry elfin figure come bounding down the hallway and leap between me and the wall that I was facing. And there wasn't much distance, I think only a couple of feet. And I think I was on the bottom step and the elf was a step or two higher. So I was looking up at him and he looked me in the eye and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Tony Kronman. I've just been admitted to the law school and I'm going to be starting in the fall and I'm very excited and I'm just checking the place out." And he looked at me and he said, "Welcome, I'm Guido Calabrese." And honestly, for the whole summer until I arrived in the fall and began my law studies in earnest, I thought Guido Calabrese was the law school's official greeter, and that he had been retained to sit on a chair somewhere in the hallway and wait for newcomers to come into the building. And then he would extend a hand and welcome them energetically. And, of course, I found out otherwise. But in a way, Guido remained and remains to this day in my imagination the law school's official greeter. And every graduate of the school who has had some contact with this magnificent human being knows exactly what I mean. But more generally, I would say that the spirit of warmth and embrace that I felt that late spring morning when I wandered into the building is one that every student who has come to this school over as long a time as any of us can remember has experienced in one way or another.
We owe an enormous debt to our students, and there are just two moments when I can really see how the students shaped this place for the better. The first one was actually way back in the late 1960s and 1970. So those were classes that were very organized, very energetic, and having a lot of conversations about what this law school should look like. And I realized it wasn't the easiest time at the school, but there were two changes that those classes brought about. One of them was the creation of a clinical program, which has blossomed into the most exciting clinical program in the country. And the other was changing our grading system, which allowed us to learn as a community, allowed students to develop bonds with each other, made sure that when students engaged with ideas, they were doing it just for the joy of the idea, which is the essence of this place. We owe that class a debt. They changed us for the better. And now as dean, I watch as other law schools try to reproduce our intellectual culture, try to build a community like we have, try to build a set of clinics that look like ours. And I realize that the class of 1970 gave us a great gift, and we continue to benefit from it.
When I was dean, I put Yale Law School on my Google alert. And I never took it off. And every morning I wake up and I look at my email and I see a bunch of stories that mention Yale Law School. And I click on the links, and each one is a story about one of our graduates who's done something amazing. Um, whether, been elected to a position or become head of a firm or gotten tenure or made a statement. And they identify them with Yale Law School. And I am just filled with pride. This is what starts my day. And sometimes, when I'm feeling energetic, I write a note or email to that person saying, I heard about your good news. And some days I'm running to class and I don't have time to do that, but it always inspires me. It always lifts me up and makes me think that I've got the best job in the world. And I'm just very lucky to be here. And every year I open the door or the virtual door, and an astonishingly talented group of people walk in, and they want to talk about law and how they can advance the cause of the world by being a lawyer. And what a privilege that is. I do it for free. I really would. Happily, I don't have to, but I would do it for free. And, Guido has, 60 years here? I'm going to catch him. I'm coming. I'm just getting started.
This has been a tough year. It's been a tough year for way too many reasons. We're engaged in a long overdue national reckoning on race. We're all dealing with the enormous fallout of the COVID crisis. We're in a really tough political season. It is not an easy time. So I've just watched as our students have taken care of each other. The staff and the faculty have just gone out of their way to make the students' life better, to help them through this difficult time. And our alums are doing exactly the same thing. And I know that as you are all out there, with our flag flying with you, that you're carrying on the same values that have animated this community for so long.
The main thing in the world today is for our graduates to be leaders, and to be leaders in the sense of being excellent, but always being good, always being decent, always being caring. If we do that, if we care for our ideals and yet lead, then this world today, with all the difficulties in it, will be made better. And it will be made better in every part of the profession seen most broadly as led by graduates of this school. That's the way it's been ever since I've been involved with the school for more than 60 years. And that's the way it is and must be now. Must be now, because now, precisely because things are so difficult, leadership of the kind that Yale Law School can give is essential.
I think Yale Law School is about learning to listen. It's learning to respect people who disagree. It's about exactly the virtues we need to heal. But it's never easy to exercise those virtues because for many important reasons, we're really angry. We have to win in order to accomplish this, that, and the other, all of which is of undoubted and paramount importance. But nevertheless, the most important thing is that, in 30 years, we're one country.
I used to tell, and I still do because I'm still teaching, I still tell the students that they have to learn to love each other because it will make them not just better people, but also better lawyers. These are fantastic kids, just as you were fantastic kids. And they learned that love makes for better people, better lawyers, and better leaders.
So one of the things about a pandemic is that it reminds you about what's at the core of this place. And it hasn't been easy deaning during a pandemic. It wasn't on my bingo card when I took the job. But I think I've had a much easier time than most deans because our values are so clear. Because when you're in the middle of a chaos of a pandemic and dealing with all the crises that it genders, You have to figure out the things that matter and focus on those and those alone. And at this law school, it's easy to know what they are. First is our teaching and research mission and making sure that our students are learning and that our faculty are creating ideas, and we have done that. The second thing that really matters is taking care of those in the greatest need in our community. So we poured $2 million more of scholarship into the students with the greatest need. We created a safety net fund to help with our students getting Wi-Fi and extra rent and healthcare costs, all the emergencies that came up. And we kept our staff together. And I know how important that is to our alums because they are beloved figures for generations. You know, Mike Thompson is walking around the building just as I am here, keeping an eye on everyone, even though it looks a little bit different inside the building than it usually does.
We're the law school that tries to build up individual students so that they're all different from each other, so that they're most fully themselves, so that they're not fungible with each other in any way. The whole curriculum of the Yale Law School is designed to do that. I used to say when I was dean that the law school is designed so that you can pick your path and you will not fail. There's enough in this law school to do whatever you want to do and succeed at it and be supported in it. So it supports the branching out of all 650 students who happen to be here at any given time. It supports their individual ambitions and makes them more fully who they are. And that's our goal, education. To educate means to bring out, and that's what we do. We bring out of each student what is really uniquely theirs. We don't try to make interchangeable parts. And, that's why Yale students are so prized, I think, in the market, because, they're not round pegs for round holes. They are the ones who redefine what the problem is. They're the ones who think outside the box. They're the ones who haven't been so professionalized that they can only see the professional dimensions of a problem. Yale law students are those who always take a problem to who they are, which means they take a legal problem and they assimilate it to the personal universe in which they're living. And that's the best way you can handle a legal problem.
If you ask law teachers at other schools around the country and law students, if you took a survey of members of the profession generally and say, what does the Yale Law School stand for? I think the answer would be twofold. It's a place where new and original and challenging and sometimes just downright wacky theories are invented and deployed and tried out in a spirit of intellectual adventure that has no counterpart anywhere else in the profession. One, and two, a dedication to the betterment of the law as an instrument or vehicle of social and political change. And that's as true today as it was in 1935. The political landscape has changed. The theories have come and gone, but those two characteristics of the place are locked into our DNA now.
Yale is not the usual law school. When I went on the road my first year, I had an alum who pulled me aside and he said, "You're going to keep Yale weird, right?" And I just want to say we are doing everything we can, consistent with tradition, to keep Yale weird. So we still offer classes that have names attached to them that I think lead a number of employers to scratch their heads as to what was inside those classes, and they are fantastic and amazing classes. We still hire faculty whose connection to conventional legal practice is a little bit more distant, but are brilliant, and they're here for a reason, which is to teach our students to think and to believe in ideas. I feel like sometimes what we do here is just offer a thinking degree, and it doesn't matter how you teach it. All that matters is that we do. What I think is the special sauce is really simple, is that we believe in ideas. That's the coin of the realm, and we just want to talk about them all the time. And we are one of the rare law schools that welcomes our students into that world. I think in other places, students get kind of hived off from it. So we just spend 3 years talking endlessly to our students about ideas. And that's a pretty good sauce.
We're like the Avengers, a community of extraordinary individuals charged with the notion that the world is a very special place and we have a very special role to play in protecting it. It's kind of a grandiose vision, but nevertheless, every single person comes here with that thought in mind. And we have individuals of astonishing ability and a community of astonishing warmth and connection, what I used to call a community of commitment. And no other place is like it. No other place has individuals so extraordinary. No other place has a culture so strong. No other place has a history so rich and so potent. And it's a community that can really do almost anything that it sets its mind to. One of the brilliant things that Heather Gerken has done as dean is in an environment in which most of the classes are being conducted virtually, where the alumni are not able to come physically into the building. We learned that the school was never the building, and it was the engagement that's happening between these individuals, this kind of community of commitment that continues to grow and thrive. And I think Guido once said to me, something might happen to Yale Law School and it might not be what it was. No other place will become like it. There's only one Yale Law School, and so we have to preserve it. And I've taken that very seriously. I think that nothing could be closer to the truth.
And then I wanted students who would stand up to me and they would say, you said that 10 years ago, it was wrong then, it's wrong now, stop repeating yourself, grow with the times, et cetera, et cetera. Students at Yale, to me, are like junior colleagues. They're people you learn from. At Yale, when we admit students, we circulate to the faculty and we have criteria for who we admit. And my criteria is always, can I learn from the student? If I feel I can learn from the student, then I admit them. And if they have, a 4.0 and 180 on the LSAT, and I feel like I don't have anything to learn from the student, I don't admit them. So that to me is that's the treasure of teaching at Yale, is you're surrounded by colleagues and by students whom you learn from.
Two classes stand out for my thinking for obvious reasons. One was the very first small group I taught. I was barely older than they were. A number of those people I work with on almost a day-to-day basis. My teaching assistant, Randy Moss, is now a federal district judge in Washington. I remember thinking at the time, he's the TA and I'm the professor. I just attended a Zoom wedding of another member of that small group. Another person in the small group told me a hilarious story about how she tried a case before her first grand jury and how that grand jury supported her during the period where she was getting married. And I remember in particular one day in class when I was having a lot of trouble getting through the material, and we got to the end of the class and a number of students were confused by what I had said, and time ran out, and I thought I failed as a teacher. And I said, I'm sorry, I just didn't get through what I wanted to get through. And one of the students said, why don't we just stay and you can just finish telling us what you wanted us to know. And we stayed for another hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, I realized how I should have taught the course in that subject in the first place. And I've taught it that way ever since.
Early in my first term, I was in the courtyard arguing with Steve Schulman, a classmate of mine. And we argued for a couple of hours. And finally, at the end of those 2 hours, he said, shoot, actually, he used a much stronger word, you've convinced me. And I said, darn it, you've convinced me. And so we turned around and started arguing again from the other side. That still happens. You get people talking, discussing, changing their minds, and becoming broader, happily doing what is the key of working to become a lawyer of every sort. And that was one of the things that made the law school for me. The other, some of you especially the older ones will appreciate, was Jack Tate, who in any number of ways made administration human and was always looking after people and doing things right for people in the school and teaching them to do right in the world. Jack Tate, Associate Dean of Everything, was maybe the most important thing in the law school for me because it taught me what it meant to be decent while being good.
Another group is the group that I did the Haitian refugee case with. That consumed maybe 100 students in the school in the 1989 through 1992. That group of students, one student in that group pulled dozens of all-nighters to get brief filed. And I remember so distinctly, I was in my office, room 247, and we had a brief that was due. The case went to the Supreme Court 7 times in a year and a half. And we're writing a brief that's due the next day. And the student, Ray Brescia, comes in. He was sort of our point guard. And he says to me, because I'm working on the brief, which is due at noon, it's 3 in the morning, he goes, are we going to get this brief site checked? And I said, I don't know, Ray. I don't know if we're going to get this brief finished, whether we're going to get site checked. Then comes back a couple minutes later, he goes, my TA told me we had to site check our stuff. And I said, Ray, it's 3:30. We have 8 hours. And I said, where are we going to find these people? And about half an hour later, I hear this knock on the door. And there were 15 kids in the hallway. They were people who lived in the dormitory at the time, which was just around the corners, and they're all wearing pajamas and their glasses. You never know who wears glasses and contact lenses. He had gone and banged on the doors and woke them up, just stray students. And, I gave them a disc and they went off and they site checked the whole thing and we filed it. So that's the spirit of Yale Law School. Whatever it takes.
I learn from my students every single time I begin a class in my contracts course, and it is with a sense of excitement, and even if I'm being completely honest, fear and trembling that I inaugurate a new line of inquiry with a student in my class because they are so smart. Their capacity to generate wild and crazy hypotheticals, to take the discussion in a line that I had not planned or foreseen at all, but which is profoundly interesting. Their capacity to do all of that is vast. And I feel after an hour with my students that I've been in the prize fight ring for 7 or 8 rounds. I have to go and lie down and recuperate. It's exhausting, but every class I make a mental note, and very often a physical note to myself, to make sure that the next year, when I'm talking about the case of X against Y, I bring up the important point that actually the student this time around is brought to my attention. And the following year, I can claim it as my own, or at least pretend to do so. And honestly, there are many things that can be said about the country's other great law schools. But the one thing that cannot be said about any of them is that they have students like ours. Our students are absolutely precious, unique in all of the world. And the greatest privilege for me of being a member of this faculty has been that of teaching them every year or one subject or another. It's just a joy.
Well, this place is very emotional to me. I have so many happy and emotional moments here. Hilarious moments. I'll never forget, the law review show where the student comes out and he says, I'm trying to decide whether to write my SAW for Professor Shuck or Professor Khan. And then the other student says, Shucker Khan, Shucker Khan, Shucker Khan, Shucker Khan. All the students come out and start chanting, Shucker Khan, Shucker Khan. This is one of only a zillion hilarious moments. A zillion. I can't even remember them all. But so from each of these students, I draw astonishing inspiration. You know, I have students who have overcome incredible disabilities, both physical, people who have had sign language interpreters in the room, other students who are in wheelchairs and, never complained. A student like Adi Barkin, who, has suffered from Lou Gehrig's disease, but I think has taught all of us about what it means to stand up for economic justice. And, I'm just honored to be associated with people like this. I have students who are governors like Gina Raimondo. I have students who are US senators like Chris Coons. Dozens of students who are professors, leaders of NGOs, heads of law firms. It's amazing how fast these people changed the face of the law.
Learning is never a one-way thing. It is always mutual. And that has affected my scholarship. It has affected my judging. My judging, there's a characteristic of me as a judge. It's that I believe that judges should talk, work with others, go back and forth, not just say it's this way. And that comes from the interplay with my students. And I think that characterizes also my scholarship. So everything, I must say, there are people who I don't understand them, who think that teaching gets in the way of scholarship. I couldn't be a scholar if I weren't a teacher, because every idea I have comes from that interchange. The Yale Law School today is in this deep sense the Yale Law School when you were there. The students still get excited, work harder than in any other school and don't know it because they are enjoying what they are doing. Just yesterday, I was teaching a class and one of the students it was online, so it was on Zoom, and one of the students sent a text which he thought was going just to the other students. It happens to come to me as well, and the text is, wow, isn't this fun? Now that's what it's about.
Reunions is one of the best times of the entire year. I have to say that I go to about 50 events over the course of that weekend, including every single dinner. And that's because when I first started this job, one of my staff members said it's impossible to go to all of the dinners. And I just thought to myself, well, they don't quite know me that well yet. So my heels are a little bit shorter every year as I make that trek, but I will be at your dinner next year. I will be at every event I can. I cannot wait to see you. And I know I speak for the faculty and the students and the staff. We miss you. We're really looking forward to having you come back and be not just with us, but also with one another, which matters so much to you. And with all the heartbreak of having to cancel reunions this year, the one silver lining in my mind is that we're actually going to let all of you also connect with the classes that were adjacent to you. And I think that's going to be really special. And so if it's not perfect at this moment, at least we have something really to look forward to next year. So looking forward to seeing you. Can't wait to have you back in New Haven, and take care of yourselves in the meantime.